Samia's introduction. So, Liz, do please. We're looking forward to hearing about virtual exchange courses.
So thank you very much. I would like to share my screen, but I'm not able to. Is there a way for me to be able to do that? Okay, great, thank you. So no, I'm listening to the keynote speaker. I was very excited, and I will be honest, a little intimidated to follow because I am picking up on several of her themes. Hold on, I'm trying to get my in. Do you see the full slide? Yes, okay. Because I am really picking up on the themes of sustainability, especially once you start an initiative, how do you keep it going? And also of the virtual exchanges. So first of all, thank you, Don, for introducing me. Again, my name is Liz Dovrat. I'm in my 4th year of my PhD in the Technology Enhanced Learning Program. I'm also an English for Foreign Language lecturer at Tel Hai Academic College, which is in northern Israel. And I've also been very involved in internationalization for the last 6 years. And what I'll be discussing today is some findings from my PhD research on how best to sustain virtual exchange courses by meeting in the middle. This is going to be my little metaphor throughout my presentation. So first, before we begin, because I'm not sure how many people are familiar with virtual exchange, I always like to give a definition before I continue. So first of all, virtual exchange is a practice supported by research that consists of sustained technology-enabled people-to-people educational programs or activities in which constructive communication and interaction takes place between individual groups who are geographically separate and or from different cultural backgrounds with the support of educators and facilitators. I took this definition from the Erasmus Plus Project Evolve. And here I really like to put an emphasis that this is about students collaborating, working together from different cultures through digital tools with the support of facilitators to help guide them through this interaction. And any academic discipline can use this pedagogical practice ranging from medicine, engineering, social science, language learning. And other similar practices include COIL, which is the collaborative online learning, intercultural learning, and telecollaboration. Of course, there are many more names for this. So first, I'm going to take you on a little detour into Israeli culture. I am located in Israel to explain how I came to this field. So a common expression in Hebrew is dakat tishim, which literally means the 90th minute. Those of you who are football fans will understand. And figuratively, it means something that happens at the last moment. And dakat tishim captures an essence of how life operates in Israel. Many decisions and plans are made at the very last minute. So my introduction to virtual exchange was at dakat tishim. So 4 days before the spring semester that started in 2018, the head of my English unit, my boss, asked me to facilitate a pilot virtual exchange with several other Israeli and European institutions. So somehow within those 4 days, I managed to recruit several students for the course. And throughout the facilitation, I thoroughly enjoyed the process of working online, of working with facilitators from across Europe and Israel. And I also saw the benefits of virtual exchange for my students because it did give them a chance to actually communicate in English and not just practice in class. So at the end of the semester, I quickly realized, that if I didn't actively pursue this virtual exchange, it would end with the pilot. So I talked with my head of the English unit, I talked with the other facilitators. And luckily, because I had built strong relationships both with my head of English unit and the other facilitators, we were able to continue this partnership that has lasted until now, and hopefully will continue on in the future. So my own experience led me to the emerging research field of virtual exchange, and through my PhD studies, I gained an understanding of the academic literature on virtual exchange. And this led me to my main problem or main research question of my doctoral research: how to sustain a co-designed virtual exchange once it's been implemented and developed. And here, co-designed virtual exchange means that partners on both sides of the exchange, the facilitators, the lecturers, work together to build the virtual exchange, decide on the tasks, decide the scheduling, and all the details. And here I use the term sustainability and sustain to refer to how to maintain the program or the course after the initial implementation phase. And I examined this research question using the theoretical framework of social constructionism with some constructs from implementation science. The three assumptions I used from social constructionism I took from Burr's 2003 book on social constructionism. The first one is that knowledge is a product of human thought and social interaction. It's not just grounded in an objective external reality. Another assumption is that historical and cultural context influences the social creation of knowledge. So as you're working together in a virtual exchange, each person is bringing their local culture into that process. And three is that knowledge is sustained by social processes. How we interact with each other and the world helps us to create the knowledge, to transmit, and to sustain. And this is really a key part of sustaining a program or a course like virtual exchange. You have to understand, how did I build? How do I transmit it to the next maybe facilitator, and in order to sustain it? From the implementation science field, which is an academic field that started in medicine, which examines how to implement evidence-based initiatives, interventions, and programs in real life, or in my case, how to implement and sustain virtual exchanges. And one subsection or subfield of implementation science is the sustainability of programs after implementation. So from this field, or from this knowledge literature, I took several categories and constructions or constructs to help me collect and examine my data. And the ones most relevant for this presentation are the category of people, especially champions, the person who is advocating for the program, or in my research, the virtual exchange, and outside stakeholders. And in my research, this is more the administrators and who are helping to support the virtual exchange. And the other category is organizations, which can include the construct of institutionalization. How do we make the virtual exchange part of the organization, and also the policies and practices within the institution? My approach to research is pragmatic, which means I choose a methodology that works best to answer my research question. And since virtual exchanges exist in that chaotic, messy real world, which our keynote speaker mentioned, that there sometimes aren't perfect solutions, so you have to work within the real world. Case study approach seemed to be the best tool because it studies a bounded yet complex real world problem in depth. And a virtual exchange can be considered a bounded case. So in my research, I had 6 cases of long-running virtual exchanges. So these were exchanges that had been offered at least 3 times, and some up to 12 times, so over 12 years. I also divided them into primary and secondary cases. So my 2 primary cases consisted of 12 interviews with facilitators, the course documentation, and national and institutional policy documentations on internationalizations. And my secondary cases consisted, and I had 4 of them, consisted of 9 interviews and the national policy and institutional policy on internationalization. And once I collected all my data, I analyzed each case individually, using 3 rounds of coding, one time with my theoretical codes taken from social constructionism and implementation science. A second time around, I did inductive codes, and the third time I did a third round just to kind of catch anything I missed and double check myself. And afterwards, I conducted a cross-case analysis and comparing and contrasting the findings from the individual cases to help me find my central themes. So, since this presentation is based on my thesis, I could go on and on about what I found with enthusiasm, while you probably would slowly retreat into social media without me knowing it. So I promise I will focus on one main finding, which is the evidence for institutionalization as a key to sustainability factor. And this institutionalization seemed to be driven by bottom-up and top-down cooperation. So this chart shows the impact of 3 organizational levels on institutionalization of 4 long-running virtual exchanges within 12 higher educational institutions. So the first level is the facilitators. This is the bottom level. These are the facilitators who are doing the day-to-day running, facilitating, mentoring of the virtual exchange. The middle level are those like mid-level administrators, kind of like the head of my English unit. And then the top level is the institutional support, whether it's by practice or a policy level. And the top, sorry, I'm getting excited. Okay. And the top row, you can see all 12 of the different higher educational institutions, and each one is represented by the facilitator who I interviewed from that institution. So as you can see, all the higher educational institutions had a facilitator championing for the VE. So this is the facilitator who's out there who really believes in the virtual exchange and is talking about it within their institution and making sure that it will continue. And most of the institutions also had that mid-level support, the administrative support throughout the exchange. Also, you can see some of them kind of had, I would call a shortcut, a cheat, where the facilitator was the person who was the mid-level administrator. So the person running the exchange was the head of the department. So they had an easier time institutionalizing the virtual exchange. And also, most of the institutions had some type of institutional support. Some of them had a virtual exchange or COIL coordinator. Some of them had a strong international office promoting virtual exchange or internationalization at home. Some had institutional policies, some provided funding. And the last row here, I divided the level of institutionalization into 3 levels. High means that the virtual exchange became a standalone course. It was either a mandatory electrical, sorry, I'm getting stuck on my words, an optional course, but it was part of the course offerings within a department. A medium level in institutionalization means that it was embedded within a part of a course and it became a permanent part of the course, but it would also be easier to remove it from that course. And low means that there was no guarantee for the virtual exchange to take place the next semester or the next year. So as you can see, the institutions with the highest level of institutionalization had support from all 3 levels. The institutions with mid-level of institution might not have had direct institutional support, but they did have that mid-level support. And the 3 institutions with the lowest level did not have that middle administrative support, and one specifically did not have any institutional support at all. So what I want to do now is I want to give you a short profile of 3 facilitators to illustrate the points from the findings from the previous table. So first, I'm going to introduce you to Stacy. Stacy was a facilitator for English for purposes of international communications virtual exchange, so an English language virtual exchange. And she also works as an English as a foreign language teacher in a large Japanese university. And while her university is globally focused, the emphasis is on student and staff mobility, not on internationalization at home. Stacy advocated to participate in this VE because she believed in the benefits for her students, since they have very little options to practice speaking English to non-Japanese students. But in order to get even a kind of semi-official permission to participate, she had to navigate multiple layers of bureaucracies, and she could not advertise the virtual exchange directly to the students. She could not change the title of the course. She could not do any marketing. It was just there in the syllabus, and students signed up for the course. And this quote from Stacy, which you can read on your own, demonstrates this lack of direct support from her university. And it kind of leaves her in this almost no-man, semi-official position that did not lead to the institutionalization of the course. And each year she had to fight to include the virtual exchange in her course. The next person I want to introduce you to is Melissa, where her entrepreneurial hackathon virtual exchange reached a mid-level of institutionalization. Melissa developed and implemented this VE as part of an international project she participated in, and she worked at a large university in the UK in the teaching enhancement department, where she promoted the integration of entrepreneurship throughout the university. Her position did not include any official teaching, so for Melissa to continue the VE beyond its pilot, she had to find another lecturer willing to embed her VE into an existing course. And at first, she encountered some opposition from the business department, who were not interested in hackathons or virtual exchanges. However, using her connections, her professional connections she developed through her administrative position in the teaching enhancement department, she did find a lecturer who was willing to embed her VE into his course. And as the quote above shows, the first quote over here, her institution approves of what she's done, and it has spread the idea of virtual exchanges within her university, but the institution never played an active role in supporting or promoting her virtual exchange. And her virtual exchange will probably continue if she stopped running it, but this is due to her colleague and his belief in the virtual exchange, and not because of the institutionalization of the virtual exchange. And the last example I want to bring you is Brad, who had a very high level of institutionalization, and he facilitated the same virtual exchange as Stacy, but had a completely different experience with his institution. After facilitating the VE for one semester, Brad arranged with his university, with full support of his dean of his department, that this VE would become a mandatory course for English for tourism. So this combination of a strong working relationship with his dean, who was also heavily involved in international projects, and a university focused on internationalization, Brad was able to push for a full institutionalization of his virtual exchange. So based on my findings, it seems that a key factor for sustainability in virtual exchange is the institutionalization of the virtual exchange. And the highest level seems to come when facilitator champions advocating for the virtual exchange from bottom up receive the administrative support and institutional support through different policies, practices, and funding. And a thing I really want to emphasize is that the professional and the personal relationships between the facilitators and administrations seemed to ease this path to institutionalization, even more so when the institutional policies and practices supported internationalization at home. And these findings are reflected a little bit in the virtual exchange literature, where I found 2 cases of long-running virtual exchanges where at least one partner had successfully institutionalized the virtual exchange within their institution, which then provided that support to continue it beyond the implementation phases. Okay, and so really, my main takeaway, or what I want you to take away from this presentation, is that the sustainability of these co-designed virtual exchanges come from the collaboration of all levels of an organization, the middle, the bottom, the top, and the middle, and it really is built on personal relationships. And the next question is really, what's next? Well, for me, it's to actually finish writing my thesis. But in terms of this line of research, I really think it should be gathering more evidence from long-running virtual exchanges to either validate or challenge or adjust what I found. And I think we need to do this both through qualitative and quantitative methods so they can balance each other out. Personally, I would be interested in exploring the experiences of the administrators, those mid-level administrators that support the virtual exchanges, especially virtual exchange or coordinators or internationalization administrators, and learn from their experiences in a more systematical way about what has worked and what hasn't worked in terms of sustainability. So I want to thank you for your time. And if there are any questions, hopefully I've kept on time, so there'll be some time for questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Liz. Thanks very much indeed for a really interesting talk there about your research and also about the practice that is happening. And I think many of us would probably echo how important the support from both bottom up and top down is, and how we'd like to see much more of that in so many instances. So I think that is something that we definitely would empathize with you on with regard to virtual exchanges. I think we have a minute or two, and I think, Phil, over to you if there are any questions in the chat.
There is a question in the chat, Liz. I don't know if you'd want to directly confront it now or reply.
Okay.
It's entirely up to you, given the time. It's about the concretization, whether this will become a point in time where the champions maybe have less of a role and it becomes part of the daily fabric, the social milieu, or whether it will always need the champions to keep the oscillations of top down and bottom up. That was a question.
I think that's a great question. I think we'll always need a champion for this type of pedagogy and practice because, to be honest, it does demand a little more work. It demands sometimes awkward hours because you're dealing with international cooperation. So we have, in my exchange that I run, we have to coordinate from Brazil through Europe, Israel, and Japan. So you have to have a element of flexibility. So you need someone who is willing and passionate and gets something out of it. But I do think we can get to a point where it's not the only reason it comes. I really would like to see where it becomes, wow, this is a special course. It's an honor to take it on. And it becomes something that within a department or within an institution is there and everyone's excited about it, but you don't have to have a champion. It's not someone fighting by themselves.
That's super, thanks. That's from somebody who had to leave, so I'll forward you response.
Okay.
Thanks very much. Great.
Okay, thanks, Phil, and thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Can we thank both of our presenters from the first part of our event? Thank you both very much for setting the scene very well for us. We are running a few minutes late, but I hope that everyone will be fine with that. I do suggest that we take a break at this point. I think it's important that we have breaks during